We now enter into the world of general and commercial aviation that we defined in the previous tutorial, talking about licenses to fly civil certified aircraft in Europe. First of all, it's necessary to open this tutorial by saying that when attempting to obtain any pilot license for aircraft or any category, it's mandatory to attend courses at a flight school certified according to European standards. The European authority responsible for regulating the aeronautical world is EASA, European Aviation Safety Agency, which, in addition to regulating any flight operation, provides standards for the training of any in-flight or ground worker. The school certification is called ATO, Approved Training Organization, and this is used for academies that deliver courses for all categories. Then there is DTO, Declared Training Organization, for smaller schools that deliver only some specific courses. In Wiki Before Flight, you can find a specific section on how a flight school is organized, what are the obligations of the school and students, and how each operation and each course works. Now let's explain how training is managed and what types of licenses exist. The licenses are divided first of all by the various categories of existing aircraft that we saw in the previous tutorial. We repeat them because they're important. Aircraft, helicopter, airship, tilt rotor, glider, hot air balloon or rather free balloon, and drones or better UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. In regards to the first four categories, airplanes, helicopters, airships and tilt rotors, the licenses are further divided into two large families. The licenses of private pilots to remain in general aviation and commercial pilots, as the name implies, to enter the world of commercial aviation. So let's go ahead and define them. The private pilot license, PPL, allows you to fly an aircraft, helicopter, aeroplane or dirigible for tourist purposes, bringing around friends, relatives, acquaintances with a single purpose, to have fun. There must be no profit, otherwise it becomes a professional activity, and for this you need a commercial pilot license. With the private pilot license, there are no limits to the piloting of aircraft or the number of passengers carried. Having the minimum experience requirements, which are different for each type of aircraft, allows you to access the qualification course on any machine. In the following tutorials, you will receive all the information on qualifications and specific post-license courses. Obviously, the discriminating factor is that you cannot perform commercial operations, so even if you qualify for a Boeing 737, you can only use it to take your friends around. At this point, you can understand that the commercial pilot license is instead necessary for all profit-making operations such as public passenger transport, cargo, work in the mountains with helicopters, helicopter rescue, or to be hired by a commercial aviation company as a professional pilot. The airline pilot license will be covered later because it is nothing more than an upgrade to the commercial pilot license. Please pay specific attention to the following. Now we'll explain a peculiarity regarding tilt rotors because in fact there is no real license. Aircraft pilots who have a minimum of experience in helicopters and helicopter pilots who have a minimum of experience in airplanes can fly this particular category. With these requirements, you can access a type-specific qualification course. It should also be mentioned that for these categories of aircraft, there is a rating that is more or less worth as much as a license. It is the instrumental rating, or IR, that allows you to fly in low visibility conditions. If you've not obtained this qualification, you will only be able to fly according to the Visual Flight Rules, VFR, and you will always have to fly orienting yourself by what you can see. But let's not go into technical matters too much right now. We've mentioned this important qualification because continuing with the explanations of the courses, you will hear about it many times. Please also note, airliner scheduled flights are all IFR. Another peculiarity, which only concerns aircraft, is the MPL, Multi-Pilot License, a license which allows you to carry out commercial operations. Therefore, it's superior to the PPL, but only as a multi-crew co-pilot. It's a bit of a strange license, and usually only airline training departments provide these courses. In the next tutorials, we will not deal with these courses because they are not steps or phases of aeronautical licenses, but are in fact courses in their own right that do not have much meaning in general. Now, let's move on to the other two categories that we have not considered up until now: gliders and hot air balloons. For these categories, the license is not divided between private and commercial. So if you're a glider pilot and you are an instructor and you are therefore paid to do so, you do not need a commercial glider license, which does not exist, but only the qualification of an instructor. The same goes for the hot air balloons, with which, for example, you can bring friends and relatives or perform public transport using the same license. The only difference between being able to do one type of flight or another is the qualifications and experience. For drones, it's the opposite. There's no amateur license, because if you use a drone with an automatic piloting system and a device to collect any type of data such as pictures, thermo, spectro and so on, you automatically become a professional pilot because you're not flying for fun, but for other purposes. Here's a note, however: even if you're not paid, when you take a photograph with a drone, you become a professional, and therefore you need the UAV pilot certificate issued by the Aviation Authority. There will be a tutorial dedicated to this topic later. We must then open a small parenthesis. There is also a subcategory of the PPL aircraft and helicopter licenses and the glider and balloon licenses, which is the LAPL, Light Aircraft Pilot License. This license offers the possibility to fly, obviously not for profit, with certified aircrafts that have certain weight and seat restrictions depending on the categories to which it refers. In these tutorials, we'll not talk about it in depth because the procedures are exactly the same as those for obtaining the private pilot license, albeit with a little less training, and therefore a reduced license is obtained. For all categories of aircraft, once you've obtained a license, if you decide to switch from one to the other, you can boast credits both for the theoretical courses and exams to be taken and for the practical part. It is technically called bridge instruction because it combines the various categories. Also, for this you will find a specific tutorial later. Now, we want to dedicate a brief discussion to the armed and police forces. Military and civil licenses are not equivalent. That is, they are worth nothing outside their scope. A civilian pilot cannot fly a military vehicle and vice versa. The first hypothesis is quite trivial and obvious, but the second is not so obvious. At one time, military pilots had a civilian license ex officio. Now, no longer, thus limiting the exit from the armed forces, which in recent decades created a considerable economic expenditure for the public administration because each military pilot cost hundreds of thousands of euros in training at the Ministry of Defence, and then, once the process was finished, the pilot could fly as a civilian. For this reason, be it right or wrong, and the fact that civilian pilots have European standards while military pilots have national standards, it was decided that in order to convert the military patent, it is necessary to do the theoretical exams again and part of the practical training, depending on the agreements between the specific armed force and their national aviation authority. Even for non-European licenses, there are theoretical and practical credits depending on experience, but we'll deal with them in one of the last tutorials in this section. Now that we have therefore understood what a private or commercial pilot license is for, in sight flight or instrumental flight, that for gliders and hot air balloons, there is only one type of license, that the military is a world apart and that with drones you have to be careful. Let's see in detail how these courses are carried out. Choose the category that interests you the most and let's start the journey. If you have any questions or curiosities, contact us at info@checkbeforeflight.com or refer to the definitions in Wiki Before Flight. Happy landings.